Welcome to episode 2 of Numbrz Building in Public. Today we're going to start the build out of our headcount model from scratch, and that's probably going to run about 10 or 15 episodes. They're probably going to run about 15 to 20 minutes each. Let's get started here. Real quick, today we're going to go through an intro of the series. We're going to do an overview of the full headcount model. That's going to be short. We're going to start building the headcount model by building the salary expense calculations, and then we'll run the data to a Google Sheet to show you how this all comes together. Expectations for the series. First of all, this is instructional. We're going to help you build automated calculations on the Numbrz platform. Second of all, which this is important, I'm going to build the headcount model out exactly like a new user would start building. So we're going to have some basic concepts in the beginning. They're going to get better and refactored along the way as we redefine what we're building. And then I'm going to record everything. There's definitely going to be some unpolished moments here. I build fast for sure. And then some of the segments I might edit to the end of a video, but I'll make sure we have chapter markers. Keep this efficient for everyone. If you watch this whole series, you're going to learn how to build pretty much anything on Numbrz. The building patterns are super important. And once you automate your analyses, I mean, it's amazing. And then final quick thing here is everything I'm building, you can actually go get it today. The headcount model source code and companion spreadsheets already available and on the Numbrz catalog. And that's where we're going to start in a couple of seconds by getting those. Real quick, tools I'll be using. I'm using Numbrz to build and test my calculations. So that's the development environment. And that's the essence of Numbrz, or at least the first half of the essence. And then we're going to be using Numbrz to run the calculations that you build here on Numbrz. And that's our compute engine. We're going to connect to Google Sheets for storing data for your input data, and you can edit it. And then we're going to write the calculated data back from Numbrz to the Google Sheet into a tab, and you're going to use that, present that data in a pivot table, which is one of my favorite tools in the spreadsheet ever. And then finally, we're going to be using Atlassian here, Trello's Atlassian, to stay organized and keep track of my work. Let's get started with an overview of the headcount model. Okay, first thing I want to do here is let's go into Numbrz and log in. And let's take a quick look, go to the catalog here, go down to service models, and I just want to show you what the financial analysis, the output of financial analysis looks like. So this is my headcount model. It has a bunch of different schedules. These are all pivot tables, and the first schedule here is a roll forward schedule showing headcount beginning 3, added 2, finished with 5, roll forward 5, 3, 8. Okay, that's great. It shows expenses by type. There's a bunch of expenses here that are done with really good precision. Employer taxes is done with precision. Taking month 3 of each quarter and doing an annualized exit run rate so you can understand if you stopped hiring or adding heads, then what would the expenses look like for the next 12 years? But importantly, all these things are in pivots. You can pivot by monthly, quarterly, semi-annual, or annual. And then input-wise, we're taking in people, salary, and hourly. We're taking in some benefit assumptions. We can do bonuses, salary adjustments, transfers. Okay. And then we're outputting data back here. So that's we'll do a separate video to go over the whole headcount model. Let's go back into the catalog and let's look at how we create all that. And I'm going to go into our template models and I'm going to get that template. And this is getting all the source that we used, that we built to generate that dashboard, forecast dashboard. And if we go in here into flows and go into the headcount model here, you can see that there's about 22 stages that we're building, and then each of the stages has different steps that we're doing. So this is what we're going to rebuild. We're not going to build it exactly in order. We're going to build it, like I said before, as a new person would, new builder would build it. And let's get started. Okay, first thing I want to do is I'm going to create a new model, and we'll call this BIP headcount. Okay, great. And once you have a new model, the first thing you want to do is create a new flow. So these are all videos here that can help, and then we have more up here in help that can help you understand how to build. Let's call this headcount. Okay, we've got stage one, and what do we want to do in the first stage? We're just going to calculate a simple salary uh, expense. And the first thing is when you're building a model, you're usually going to have some output data, external data that you want to read into your model. And I've already set that up here. Um, and it looks like a simple, almost like a report out of a payroll system. But I've got employee ID, name, position, salary, start date. You might have, term date here too. So let's insert term date column left. Okay. And then let's enter a date here somewhere. We want to let the system know that this is a date field. So let's just have one of our 12/3/24. Okay, now we've got a date. These when Numbrz reads in data, we're treating this tab like a database, and so all the data types are going to have to be the same, because that's how it works in databases. So you can't have a string here and a date in the same column. More on that later, but that's and usually what I do here when I have an input, I'm going to tag this as green. Okay. All right, cool. All right, so first thing I want to do is let Numbrz know about that table. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to copy the URL from the Google Sheet, and we're going to go to data, and actually take that out from before, and we're going to connect a data set. So we're going to connect to a Google Sheet. Here's what we can connect to currently. More connections are coming. I'm going to put that URL. And again, if I need to trim the video at all for putting in the user ID and password, I'll do that. Okay, next. Okay, we are good. So now we've connected the sheet here. You can see what I have. A couple of these tabs are hidden right now, but this is the one I want to connect. Let's finish that. Great. So I have a data connection to a file called BIP headcount, which is this one. And you can see here I'm connecting to the people tab. Let's go back to our flow. And in the flow, I'm going to, actually, let me just take this out to start over. Calc salaries, expense. Okay, that's what the stage is going to do. And we're going to need to read from a job table. I guess it's still here, so we can just use this. And in this job table, I'm not going to build it out manually. I'm going to copy the columns from the data connection that I already have. And boom, there you go. I love it. So now you can see here, these are all the columns that are in this tab. Importantly, the data types are all set because I put example data in there, which is great. Okay, let's go back. So what do we want to do? First thing I want to do is calculate salary. So I'm going to take all these people, and then I'm going to need to, for each person, I want to repeat each person's record for every month that I want to calculate their salary. So this is similar to the video we did in episode 1. I'm going to do generate forecast months. Okay, great. Sorry, I do a lot of capitalization. Okay, month. So we're creating a new series, but it's really a column, right? It's a date, and want to fill the dates from a start date to an end date. For every, sorry, create a new month for each person between the start and end date. What we should do here real quick is, so we're gonna need job variables. Let's call this forecast start month. Put a default value in there. It is a date, and we have to add it, and then we have a forecast end month. By the way, when you're doing, oh, sorry, 1/1/24, 12/1/24. Dates need, if you're doing forecast months, you want them to be the first of the month. We'll go over that more later. Okay, there's my job variables. I'm going to go back to my stage here. So I'm going to create a month, and for each record person in there, but starting at the start month, we are going to increment it by 1. So it's a hard-coded value, 1 month. And then we need to end condition. So we're starting in January there. When are we going to end? You can either do 12 of them, a hard-coded value, or what have you. In this case, I'm going to specify a value. And in the month, I'm going to say don't go beyond the forecast end month. Okay. Now we're good here. So let's start going, okay, what am I creating right here? So let's, we have test data, and there's no test data found. And let's create a new test. Let's just call it new higher. We'll start and end in forecast period. Okay, great. So test cases are meant to be for very specific use cases. You want to keep it as small as possible here, and so you're testing one test case at a time. So we're going to have Olivia, and she's going to start on March 2nd, 24, and she's going to term on May 4th, 24, and her annual salary is $120,000 for Center of Excellence. Okay, we don't need employee ID and position because they're not used for the calculations. Okay, so now we have a valid test case. Just real quick, what you're seeing here is you're going to have be able to enter test data for any external table. So in this case, we added a job table, which connects to external data, and then the job variables are here too. So let's go back to our flow. And we have our test data open. If we run this real quick, you're already getting some great feedback on what you're building. So here's Olivia. She's coming in. And what do we say? We're generating forecast months. We're creating between, what do we got here? Start date, end date, generate forecast months. Did I do something wrong? Start date, forecast end month. Oh, right. So obviously I made a mistake here. Okay, so let's fix that real quick. It's always great to make a mistake. So month, we're going to generate a date, and we're starting on not Olivia's start date, but the forecast start month. And then we are going to increment by 1 month. And then we're going to end, like I said before, on month and job variables and month. Okay, great. Now let's rerun. I mean, this is a great example of why test data is so good. I was expecting to see forecast start date. So these values are the inputs to the step, and the green are the values that are generated. So let's run that again. And now you're going to see this has changed. This generate forecast months step is now configured to take in January 1/1 and 12/1. And then so for each record up here in Olivia, it's going to generate months between these date ranges. And so you would expect to get 12, and there's your 12. Okay, great. Let's keep moving because we're almost done, but now it's time to build a function. So now that we've generated that, let's what do we want to do? We have 12 months for Olivia, and I want to calculate salary expense. Okay. And we don't have any functions in this model. You could move functions here, but since we're building in public, we're going to calc monthly salary. We are literally going to build this out real quick. I'm going to move fast here, but what do we, okay, we have annual salary, and we know need to know the person's start date. And then if you need to know the start date, you need to know their term date. And then this is calculating monthly salary, so we need month. Calc monthly salary expense. Okay, so we're gonna just put this salary expense here. Okay, so we are Numbrz is data type. You need to work with data types. So when you set a value here, we're going to assign it. In this case, you can see here to a number. You can change it to percent and put your decimals in if you want. And then we're going to, I don't think she was 1, 3, 2, 24. And the term date was, I don't know, 5, 3, 24. And we want to calculate salary 1, 1, 24. Okay, so in this salary expense, we're going to do something really easy. We're going to, it's probably going to take 5 minutes to build out, but we're going to, we're going to calculate their monthly salary, and then if it's their start or term month, we're just going to use 50% of the amount. So let's build real quick, and this will be interesting to see how fast we can build. So first thing I need to do is I need to divide, because I want to know, so this is calc monthly amount. Okay. So obviously you can label these things numerator, uh, numerator, denominator. Okay. All right. So this would be monthly, full month. And then obviously if they work for partial, I'll just call it that. Labels are good, right? So if we're just going to divide it by 2, and now you get your 5,000. Okay, great. So now what we want to do, you're going to need an if statement, because you're going to need to say, you know, what's going on. I mean, what are the rules to calculate salary expense? And I think right now we're only going to output one thing. So let's just keep going. So double click here, and we have something called a switch widget. This is amazing. Again, all visual. And we're going to go determine, or logic, I guess is what I usually say, salary expense. Okay, so if you're a builder, I mean, obviously you kind of know that your if statements are mostly going to have, well, I usually put my if statements in the beginning. So has not started. These are all the different rules I think we're going to need here. Has termed. Okay. And then what do we say? Start term month, and then otherwise, full month. All right, this is a little different than I normally do it, but let's see if we can do it this way. We should be able to. Okay, now we got to talk about dates. So if this month, so I think we want this month here. Let's bring that in. Okay, so we're gonna build it. So if the person term month is greater than, okay, let's figure this out here. So let's do a couple things. We're gonna need start month and term month first of all. So let's do let's parse the date, right? And so this is start month. And That's parse date, and we're going to need to build a date now. We want to build the start month, compose a date. Cool. So look how easy this is, right? I mean, now I'm going to build, obviously it's start month. I always want it to be first of the month. And here, okay. We know we're going to need term month. And term date is interesting because it's not always going to be populated. And so when you're building, you got to understand, how your logic's impacted when you have blanks. So let's put a couple things here. We can't just have the term month date be blank. So we're going to have to put an assumption here. And so in this case, what we're going to say is if the term month is blank and you're evaluating January, then the answer is just say it's February. I mean, that's the easiest way to do it. So let's take this and we're going to do another switch widget. So determine term, same thing, logic, term, month, right? So what are we trying to say here? Term date. So if the term date is blank, then what do we want to output what? Otherwise, if it's not blank, we want to output the term date. So if the term date is blank, then we want to output, well, what do we say, next month? So let's calculate next month here. So we're going to need to parse this month. Okay, and we're going to, oops. Okay, there's this month, and then we want to calculate next month. So all we're going to do here is add 1 month to that month. So let's do an add widget. This month, what do you say, month? You don't have to label all these things. I like it because if I come back to it, right? I guess it's really next month, this month. Okay, now we're going to compose another date, and it's put it here next month. So already know it's going to be a 1, and you've got this month, so you want the same year from this month for next month, and then we're going to hard code a 1 here, so now you're going to have a 2. There you go, right? So this month is January, next month is February. Let's go back to this. So logic term dates, where are we going to use this? If the term date is blank, then just put in next month. So let's do that next month. Let's drag that into here. By the way, these move in the beginning. Some of the widgets move around because they're based upon links. Then it settles down pretty quickly. Okay, look at this again. If the term date is blank, so we want to test this out, then use next month, and we're outputting next month. So this would be term month. I usually say determined. Oh, come on. Okay, so term month is going to go. That's compose. I don't need that, I think. Probably, sorry, I do need that. I want to parse it. Let's come back to that. Okay, so term, we get a date. So it's always good to test. So if your term date is 5/3/24, you can see now here's your logic term month. It's really term date. Okay, it's better. So now you see you're outputting 5/3. So you are going to want to parse the date. Term date. So same thing, we're going to bring that in, and then we're going to compose term month. And we're going to take those values, term date. Oops. Get better with my dragging. So it's May, and then obviously we need a 1 there. Okay, great. So let's get, I think we kind of got everything we need here. So if the employee, obviously if the person hasn't started, we want to output a 0, and the person has termed, we want to, so In this case, we're saying if this month, so the person hasn't started. So if this month is greater than, so they haven't started. Sorry, my brain's not working quite super fast here. Um, so the start this month is less than their start month. So where's their start month? Right here. Start date. I should say, sorry, start date. Okay, here's the start month, and we're going to drag that right into here. Okay. And when you do this, you should be, testing this out. So this month is obviously January in the function and the start date's March. So this is true. So here's your switch statement. It's gonna output the value from the first true. There you go. Then output 0. Okay. So now let's do the second one. If this month, it's the same thing, you're gonna grab this month. You can put multiple values up here. So you can build the switch widget however you want to. You can just insert another condition here. But if this month is after greater than the term month, then 0 also. And let's do that. So this month let's just make this 6-1, right? So here's your first true, outputting 0. Great. And by the way, this should be mapping to salary expense. Again, everyone builds a little differently. So I know if statements definitely can be built differently. So person has not started, has not termed. Okay, now this month equals the start month or the term month. All right, so we've got one rule here. This month equals, well, what do we want to do? We want to use half of the amount. Okay, great. This month equals, so the start month, and let's do that. So 3, okay, same thing. So now we're like boom, 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 true, 5,000, there's it coming out. Or let's add another rule in here. This month equals the term month. You can have it be separate functions, but in this case, I'm just trying to keep my widget clean. I guess I could do, well, I don't know if I could do something there, but so let's change the month to May, right? Um, term date, this month equals the term month. Let's go 5/1/24. Oh, this is and. Sorry, that's why I can't do this. Sorry, I haven't done this before, and this method I thought I could do that, but you can't. So I've got to. This is an and, not an or. So I need to take this out. So this is start month. I love how I built. I've built this function a couple times, but the advantage of Numbrz is you can actually just reuse a function that's already built. So you start kind of once you get your function tested, you're just going to keep reusing it. You don't keep rebuilding it from scratch like you do in a spreadsheet. Term month. Okay, this month equals, so now we're back to term month. Okay, and we're going to get the true because we've set these values up. We need another 0, and now we're to 0. Okay, and then finally, let's test the other. Otherwise, what else should it be? It should be Olivia should earn a full month of salary. There you go, and that would be April. Okay, there's your $10,000. And I guess you really want to test one final thing. We did January. Let's test June. Should be 0. Okay, great. All right, good. We got a working function. Lots of important things here. I'd say, lean towards labeling so you have good documentation, no term date, right? Once you build this, you're only going to reuse it, and then you don't even need to build this really because you can just use ours. But okay, let's go back now to the flow. And so what do we can't run test data right now because we don't have a fully configured flow. You can see the alert. It must be at least one function input must be configured. So here's my function that I just built. We are going to map. And so annual salary comes from the people table, annual salary or start date comes from the people table, term date comes from the people table. Now, month does not come from the people table. It comes from this generate forecast month stage. So you're going to drop down here and you can see that's the input. If it's a table that's stage input, it shows the table name. If it's a different step, it's going to show whatever your title is. And so generate forecast months, here's that month. Okay, we're good. So now what we're going to do is we're going to run this and we're going to see here, this thing works great. Here's your 12 months that are being filled. Um, this kind of goes back to the video from last week. Here's your 12 months of salary calculated, and I can see an error right here. I'm kind of, oh, I think because, well, I don't understand. Let's look and find out why May is not working right. Um, so we're going to go, maybe I have an error in my function, which is always great. Let's go back to 5/1/24. And right, it's a term date, it's term month, and I output if it's the term month, right? Say it's an error, then 5,000. And if you're watching me, hopefully you caught that as I was building it. Okay, so this is, the realities of building are moving too fast. Let's run it again. Now you can see here's my expected results. Okay, going back to last week's video, there's a lot here, but I really don't want to output these zeros. I really don't even want to generate a forecast month for all 12 months if I know there's an optimal way of doing it. And you can review last week's video, which is great. I have a tutorial too, but there's a way to optimize. Before you generate these forecast months, I created a function that optimizes, and I might as well just use that real quick. Okay, because you don't want to output all 12 records because I don't want to output zeros. That's a waste. And then I don't even want to calculate them. So let's, this is a little extra credit. Let's do this real quick because this is what you should be considering when you're building is also building for efficiency and speed. Okay, I know I have a function in the catalog that I can download. So let's just go get it, tutorials, and let's get this. And when you get something that's a template model, it's going to open it right up. So now I'm in a different model, tutorials. I'm going to go to functions, and there's a determined salary fill start and end month function. If we look at this real quick, it's taken in the forecast start and end month, the employee start date and term date, and then this just has some if statements, and it's going to calculate the optimal fill start and end date. So in this case, where we're doing it for the year, Olivia started in, let's say, February, but she terms in May, right? So now you can see we're only going to fill for the months. This function only fills for the months that we need. So let's go back to that function real quick, determine, and let's clone it. And we're going to clone it into the headcount model. Okay, let's get out of here. Let's go into BIP headcount. If we go to functions, you're going to see I've got a copy of this, and let's just, oops. And this is come on. This is a great example of where you're going to do some refactoring of work that you've already done. I mean, especially as you're learning, but that's okay. So let's go back into my flow. And again, we're showing calculating 12 months here. We know we only want to generate 3. Let's bring in that function that I just copied over. Determine fill dates. Okay. And let's grab that function or right here. We're going to have to remap it. So forecast start month comes from the job variable, as does the end month. And the employee start date comes from that people table. Term date. Okay, great. So now what's this going to do? Well, this generate forecast months is going to have to be, we can't edit this right now, so you're going to have to again, delete this again and redo it. So we're going to do month, and it is a date. The start value is going to come from the fill start date determined, increment by 1 month. And then same thing, end condition is a limit value month on this value. And you can create multiple fills that's more advanced, but we'll go over it later. And then the end date is the fill end date determined. Okay. Now what I did by doing that is I actually deleted that month value that was here before, even though I renamed it. The system sees it as a different column because that column's gone. So now we got to remap it again, which is easy from the same spot. And let's run this, and boom, there's your 3 month of fill, right? So we're now running this flow stage as the optimal flow stage. We're only, for each employee you bring through, we're only going to calculate the optimal number of months of salary, and that's going to make your model run faster. Okay, last step here. What are we going to do? We're creating it. Now we've done our salary calculations. We want to output it, and we're going to output it to, you can either do job tables or working tables. Job tables are external to here. So, and we already have this one created called flow output. If we go look at the schema real quick, it came in with a value, but let's just take that out. And let's go back here. So we have a flow output, sorry, and let's call it, I think we called it just salary expense, I think. Let's just go back into this here. I've already created, that's not what I want. I already created the target table salary expense. Okay, so we'll come back to that in a second. Okay, so here's my table salary expense. Let's go back to the flow. And at our output step, we want to output some fields. So here's some new concepts for sure, but we have these job details, and I do want to output this. So it's going to be what job name is running. I don't need bottle name. I don't need flow name right now. I just want to say what job, and we'll talk about this later, but you can have as many jobs as you want for this flow. So therefore, I want the job name. And then I want to know who ran the job and what time was the job run. Okay, so I want those output. And then I don't need the job variables, the forecast start and end month output. I mean, I guess you could output it if you want to. In this case, I do want to output, well, what's Olivia's department? Yeah, I'll take her employee ID, her name, her position. I don't need start and term date because I just don't. I just want the salary expense. I do want um, months. So I do want to output month here. And then, of course, I calculate salary expense, so I want to output that. So I'm going to hit add. And now you can see here, this stage, okay, I have a bunch of errors, but it's just because I'm asking the system to output these columns to an external job table called salary expense. But if I go look at it, it's empty. So if you go back here, the easiest way to do this is great, add missing columns, boom. All right, and now all the errors are cleared. If we go run the test data again, here's your data that's being output. So here's the job name, which is my stage name currently, but once you configure up a job, it'll be the job. It's my Gabriels I ran. Here's the timestamp I did, and here's the data coming out. Okay. Okay, so that's the flow. It works. It's a single stage. It calculates salary. It's mission accomplished mostly. Well, sure, inside of the Numbrz model. But now I want to get that data into my spreadsheet, right? So we just built and tested. What do we say we're going to do? Build and test the calculations in Numbrz. And we're doing that. Now, the next piece is we need to, and we've done that without any external data. You've done test data. You can have multiple test cases. You can have different test cases for didn't term, didn't, start date after the forecast range, whatever you want. You can have as many test cases as you want. The next thing I want to do is now I want to read in this data, and I want to get the salary expense data to my spreadsheet. and we are gonna, I always usually have the outputs be red, so I know what I'm looking at, red for output, green for inputs. Okay, so now what do we want to do? We are going to create a job. We're going to go, let me just go back to Numbrz, BAP headcount model. We're going to create a job. And what flow do you want to run? Well, we're going to run our headcount flow. Let's just, call it run headcount for now. And it's going to automatically map the data. But one thing is we've told Numbrz, Numbrz doesn't store your data, but we need to connect to it. So we are going to have to stop here for a second. And if we go to our data connections, here's the connection to that sheet. We've only connected so far the people sheets. And I showed you that before. So if we go back here and connect sheets, there's a salary expense table. We want to connect that. So you're going to want to connect whatever you want us to read and write. And the reason why we have it as individual tabs is so we don't clutter things up, because your spreadsheet could have tons of different tabs that you may not want to connect to. And so we want you to specify once, what do you want to connect to? And so I just did that. Okay. To be clear, I did create this ahead of time. And so these are those built administrative fields: job name, time started, run by. And again, you're going to want to put some data in here. Like this looks like a timestamp, right? 3:10 a.m. String number, oh, month, there you go, 5/1/24. Okay, that's good. String, string, string. Okay, so these are some things so we need to, if we don't have data here, we can't, you're going to have to specify what it is. And actually, let's just do that. Okay, so we've got salary expense that we're connected. You can see here it's saying month is unknown because it wasn't there when I connected it. And so now you're going to have to go and call it date. It's not date and time. It's going to just straight date. Okay, good. All right, so now we have the two tabs we want to connect to. Let's get this job going. We're going to go into jobs, create a job, select from our one flow. And yeah, we want to automatically configure. As long as the column names match exactly and the data type, we will do the config for you. Now it says, where do you want to connect to? And I'm saying the building and public headcount sheet or data connection. We know it's a Google sheet, and here's what you've connected so far. So yeah, we're going to connect and try to scan. Okay, so what didn't work? So people connected. You can see here, fine. Here's the model data it's looking for, and here's my data, how it mapped it. On the salary expense side, where I'm writing out to, it couldn't find something called salary expense. And so that's probably just, what did I call it? I called it amount. Okay, so for now, we can just leave it as that. And there's a couple things you do here. One is you can just map it. Amount. Okay, that cleans it up. But really, probably what you want to do here is actually fix this. So I'm going to go into model data here. Sorry, expense. So now I'm back in the job table and see it says salary expense. I'm going to call it amount because I know I want it to be amount in the future. All right, you can always change these, but if they're exact and the data type is right, it's going to auto map. Okay, so now we've got a working job. It reads in from people and it's going to write out to salary expense. We're going to hit run real quick and we'll see that data. Looking at the Google Sheet, there it came in, right? So this is all the data for each employee, and we're calculating salary dollars per month. And in here, here's your 50% for someone in their starting month. Definitely have some open columns of data, which we'll add later. And then I do want to address this. So what we just did when we ran the data, all I did was insert data into the salary expense table. And the original data that's there is still there. I don't want that. So I'm going to go real quick back into my flow and I'm going to do a configuration change. So I'm going to go to job tables, salary expenses, which is where we're outputting it. And on the export settings, we're going to hit erase all data. That's all we need. So we go back into jobs now get the run button here. Actually, real quick before I do that, I can add this URL here for the output tab to the external results. Save that and let's run that. Now when you delete, it's going to delete all, run this, it's going to delete all that data and re-import all that data. Now this data can be pivoted on. I mean, I guess we might as well do that real quick right now. I mean, everyone knows how to do pivot tables, but insert pivot table, new sheet, pivot. Okay. Um, so real quick, let's just do by department, by person, and then we want to do months in the columns and amount in. Oops, that's not what I want. Values, add amount. Okay. Cool. So here's our pivot table. It's on its way, but it's still very early, but we're getting, exactly what we want out. Now, a couple quick things here. So this scales up. I mean, you can run, 1,000 people through here, and it's still going to output all the right data that you need here, and then you're still going to be able to pivot on it. Okay, so I think that's it. What did we do here? We created, well, I guess I'll show you one more thing real quick. Um, when you run a job, it's showing you what's happening here. So we're loading, you go to full details, right? We're loading the 12 records in from people on the Google Sheets, and then we're truncating the data out in salary expense and then writing 71 records back. And then if you go down here, oops, sorry, not there, here for stages, you can actually see the 12 records that came in the stages. You can see we transformed the 12 people into 71 records, 1 month for each record in their forecast range where they're also active employees, calculated expense, and then wrote the 71 records out. If you go look here real quick, there's going to be 71 records of data right there. Great. Okay, so I think that's it. We're going to iterate on this model and continue until we land on that headcount dashboard. There's a lot of detail here. I think today's building, it was real. It was, hey, I made some mistakes. I fixed them. I had test data that worked really well. Tested out the function that I built, found an error there when I used my test data in the flow. I mean, lots of really practical examples of how easy it is to build on in the Numbrz development platform and to resolve any issues and build more test cases. I mean, it's a fantastic platform. So next up, what we're going to end up doing is building that headcount roll forward schedule. I'll probably take a quick break and then take a quick shot at it now. We're getting to the point where we're going to, we built this really cool, simple calculation set. It's outputting data that looks like it came from a SaaS application. We got some enhancements to do, but now what we're going to start to see is we're going to start changing some of our architecture as we start pushing more data into a single data set, and we make some cool adjustments to both make the model much more diverse, but then also very simple or really I'd say elegant with respect to how we handle data out.